Allison, I want you to formally welcome Seth Golden, who is going to speak to the topic, which is the influence of Marcus Garvey on reggae. And can you unmute him if he hasn't?
Yes,
I think he has.
he needs
Yeah.
to. Can you unmute your screen, Stephen? We have to welcome you officially here. Now, I personally am a Garveyite, so I'm so excited to have you here this evening speaking to us for the July 1 International Reggae Day, all the way from Jamaica. So we welcome you, Stephen Golden. We say blessings, we say greetings and honor, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Sister Allison. Can you all hear me?
Yeah. I can hear you fine.
Bless up, Brother Kwaku. Thanks for hosting and facilitating this event. I also want to say a big congratulations to Andrea Davis, who has been pushing this International Reggae Day for almost for over a quarter of a century now, and has been involved in the industry for long before that, and has made great and significant contributions. Greetings to everybody who's tuned in. Bless up to my London family. I also want to say congratulations to all of you, because we've been watching in Jamaica what's been going on the televisions, in the media, this response to the murder of one of our African brothers in the United States of America. And all I can say to you all is more fire, keep the fire blazing. We love it. And brick by brick, you know, the load's gonna come tumbling down. In terms of the topic today, and I'm so sorry that our ambassador there hasn't joined us. I was looking forward to what he said before I spoke, but since I'm the first one out the block, Marcus Garvey's influence on reggae music is undoubtable. And this year, 2020, happens to be such a significant year, because if you saw the flyer, we are recognizing the 100th anniversary of the first International Convention of the Negro Peoples of the World, that was hosted by the UNIA under the chairmanship of Marcus Garvey in New York City for the entire month of August in 1920. And I don't know if it's a matter of providence or just the universal cycle of life, but unfortunately, what is happening in the world today in terms of the rising up against Black oppression and Black discrimination is something that convention in 1920, which consisted of over 25,000 delegates representing the African diaspora and the continent right around the globe, they met for 30 days and produced a document which sadly does not get enough attention or enough praise. But that document was called the Declaration of Rights of the Negro Peoples of the World, and it consisted of 54 declarations which address precisely the issues that we see boiling over now, both in the United States, in the UK, and even here in Jamaica. We've had our own reasons, our own issues with police brutality, but more so, if those of you who are Jamaican might know that we've recently lashed out against our own Governor General for wearing this symbol of the Order of St. Michael and St. George, which depicts a white, supposed to be an angel, standing on the neck of what is supposed to be the devil, who is depicted as a black man. So in 1920, Garvey put these things to paper with consultation of the entire race as represented at that convention. And if you haven't heard of that document before, I want to encourage you to look it up, the Declaration of Rights of the Negro Peoples of the World. You will find that it looks surprisingly similar to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which came out in 1948. But the only difference is Garvey produced this document in 1920, sent it to the League of Nations in 1922, and again in 1928 delivered it personally himself. But the League of Nations refused to recognize that document, saying that Marcus Garvey didn't represent a nation, themselves being the League of Nations. And Garvey, in his own response, declared the League of Nations null and void, which was prophetic given what happened to them after World War II and the collapse of that body and the creation of the United Nations. In terms of music, you all should know that Marcus Garvey was a master of propaganda. And I don't mean mispropaganda. but he had a real flair for the dramatics, for pomp, for pageantry, but he had a purpose and mission how he used it, and that was to raise the consciousness and awareness of the race, to see ourselves equal in the eyes of all races, regardless of the tremendous amount of discrimination we were facing around the world at that time. And so Garvey also understood the African culture on a very deep level, himself coming from Jamaica, which is predominantly of African descent in terms of population and overwhelmingly so in terms of our culture. Understood the power of music and how it moved the masses, particularly Africans. You know, we are drum people. We follow a rhythm, you know, our heart beats loud, and we give the little bounce to that heartbeat, and it puts the bounce in our step and so forth. And so Garvey employed music. In fact, the UNIA platform in New York at the time held a number of functions that provided space for upcoming musicians at the time and other types of artists. In fact, Marian Anderson, who, those of you who know the music history, would have been the artist, the soprano, I believe, I'm not sure, who performed at the inauguration of Franklin Roosevelt as US President, cut her teeth on the microphone at Garvey's UNIA meetings in Liberty Hall in Harlem. In 1924, Rosa Henderson put out a song called The Black Star in recognition of Garvey's infamous shipping line. In 1925, Marcus Garvey himself, while incarcerated, penned a poem which was called Keep Cool, and which he instructed members of the organization to arrange and put to music. So himself, Garvey, was a musical writer, was a poet in his own right, and made serious contributions to music, not only in his time, but later, when you hear songs that speak about man to man is so unjust, that a lot of people say, oh, the great Bob Marley. What they don't understand is that Bob Marley was such an avid reader and such a student of Marcus Garvey that many of Garvey's utterances found their way into Marley's music and took on a second life, so to speak. Emancipate yourself from mental slavery, old pirates, yes, they rob I, from that song. That was from a speech Garvey made in Canada. Again, Man to Man is So Unjust is a poem he wrote while he was incarcerated. So Garvey's influence didn't die when his flesh departed this earth. In fact, we can even go back further. Let's go back to the beginning, because what Garvey stood on, the philosophical platform and foundation that Garvey built his movement on, really is something that they define in the encyclopedia today as Ethiopianism. Now, Ethiopianism started in the late 19th century and was propelled by people like Edward Wilmot Blyden, who at the time was living in Liberia and was a Liberian statesman, but had originally come from the Danish West Indies, what is now today the US Virgin Islands, before repatriating. And it took seed in Africa, influencing particularly South African clergy, who found that they were not being advanced in the Methodist Church or other churches where the black man was operating at the time because of racial discrimination, because of the color of their skin. And so out of this, they came up with this concept of Ethiopianism, using the Bible and biblical lore to justify the Africans' true place in history. And so we found that certain texts like Psalm 68:34, princes shall come out of Egypt, and Ethiopia shall stretch forth her hands unto God, became a friend. And this influenced other people like Sylvester Williams, who called the first Pan-African conference in your own city in London in 1900, 120 years ago, this July 23rd. And started to position the African and started to promote the concept of Pan-Africanism. Remember, the concept of Pan-Africanism was born in the slave ships. There was not a concept of Pan-Africanism before the advent of the transatlantic slave trade, because it was that traumatic experience that forced us to look beyond tribal allegiances and to look beyond clannish allegiances where we were from on the continent, to realize that we had a common enemy as a race, regardless of whether we were taken from West Africa, East Africa, South, Central, or North Africa. So Ethiopianism gave birth to Pan-Africanism. And Pan-Africanism gave birth to Marcus Garvey, perhaps as its greatest champion in the 20th century. He completely took it to the next level. And out of Garveyism, we have several movements: Nation of Islam, the Rastafarian movement, and in the case of talking about reggae, let us key in on the Rastafari movement, because reggae could not exist without the Rastafari movement. Garvey had people like Rabbi Arnold Ford, who was a Bajan musician, who did a lot to introduce and promote jazz within the Harlem Renaissance. And those of you who know the history of reggae, whether we're going back to ska or mento, at that time, Western music coming out of America had strong influences on the Caribbean. So we picked up from the jazz, we mimicked some of the blues that we heard and came up with our own forms of music, mento, ska, and then reggae. And it's so interesting because one of Marcus Garvey's speeches warned the race that we should not sing the songs of other races that glorify their own race, but to create songs that glorify our own race. And can we think of any other genre of music? Of course, there's hip hop and other things. But when we speak about reggae, and when we speak about that level of consciousness that the Rastafari movement brought to reggae, reggae was music with a purpose, which is why it had such a strong influence on the liberation movement, say, on the continent of Africa. It had such strong influence on people like Nelson Mandela, people like Robert Mugabe, and they told stories of how this music motivated them while they were in the bush fighting against the European colonists and fighting for their own independence. And this has a lot to do with Marcus Garvey teaching us as a race the power of propaganda, and the power of propaganda to move people in a positive direction. So it's not just singing about shake our booties and how good we feel, but it now became music that carried a message, and music that was a vehicle for motivating people and enlightening them about the injustices we were facing as a race, and also proposing how we corrected that, which is such a mirror of what Garvey did with that first convention in 1920. Not only did they identify the discrimination that was facing them, but they put forward a declaration stating to the world, this is how our race should be treated, right? We don't want to be discriminated in terms of traveling. We don't want discriminatory education that teaches white supremacy. We don't want to be treated as second-class citizens. We don't want it to be prohibited from entering hospitals and certain spaces, because that was the nature of the societies at the time. And reggae music has been a vehicle for breaking down barriers. I'm surprised now in 2020 just how universal this music that came out of this little island of under 3 million people. But as Jamaicans, you know, we're proud to say that as a nation, we lickle but we talawa, which means that we punch way, way above our size and way above our weight class. And music, which is inertly connected to our African identity. And it's so funny, you know, I hate to say this when I'm speaking outside of Jamaica, but we have to take some flack to, you know, because our ruling society, which was heavily influenced by their colonial Anglo heritage at the time, did not see the power of reggae when it came out. It took for the world, it took for reggae to shook the world, to move the world, for the ruling powers in this country to want to then play catch up. And the sad thing is that is the same way we treated Marcus Garvey. Because even after he was in prison in the United States, we put him in prison here in Jamaica. And in his own disgust, he chose exile in your city right there in London, vowing never to return to Jamaica. But nonetheless, he persisted in his work and continued to have an influence, so much so that 80 years after his death, we're still talking about him, and we're still seeing how he has revolutionized propaganda in terms of Jamaican music and in terms of Jamaican culture and its influence on the world. Kwaku.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, a bit over time, but I guess I just had to allow you to get it all in, particularly since you've made an effort to be with us all the way from Jamaica. So right now, I do know that H is in the house. Allison, can you please look for
Yes.
H.E. Ramocan?
Yes, I am
Ambassador,
for
how
him.
are you?
Our High Commissioner here. Blessed love, Stephen. Respect each and every time. Could you please leave some contact details in the chat as well, please, Stephen? We appreciate love you each and every time, and we thank you so
Right.
very
So,
much. Yes, Kwaku, I'm going to highlight now. Right, where are we, Mr. Ramakan?
so I think it comes under Ramocan.
Yes, I can see. I
You can
saw
see
him
it.
just now.
Okay.
For him again. Right, here he is. I'm going to spotlight our honorable guest here. Greetings
Right.
and welcome to you from our High Commission here, Mr. Seth Ramocan. Respect.
Thank you. Thank you very much for joining us. Yeah, we do have some technical problems and we do have a limit. The problem with free things is that people book and then they don't turn up. And now there's an opportunity that they've booked and most people have turned up. But knowing what happens in the real world, I decided to have a limit. So I'm glad that H.E. has been able to join us. So we're talking about the Jamaican High Commission to the UK and Ireland, His Excellency Seth George Ramocan. I'm glad to say that he's not a stranger to me. I have been to a few events in his yard, and he has been to a few events in our yard. The last time you came to Woolsey, not only did you speak eloquently, but I remember something you said. H, are you okay?
Yes.
You're okay, right?
Yeah, I'm trying.
What you said that I did not realize was that you said, as small as Jamaica is, you did something that was symbolically significant. You were the first country to introduce sanctions against South Africa. Did we know that? So
Yes.
obviously sanctions became very big, but as Jamaica that started, symbolic as it was, it did turn to something practical. Okay, so now H.E., the floor is yours.
Okay, just trying to get my.
Oh, are you making a presentation?
Yes, I am.
No, if you make a presentation, I need to make you a co-host. That's what I'm asking. Are you going to be using slides and stuff?
Oh no, not
okay.
at all.
That's
not at all.
That's
yeah,
fine.
yeah.
That's fine then.
No, I just want to greet Andrea Davis, who is the founder of the International Reggae Day, and of course, you know, to you, Kwaku, to Stephen, and the many other distinguished ladies and gentlemen who are on this particular web seminar, if you may. It really is for me a very great pleasure to extend warm greetings to my fellow Jamaicans, to the Friends of Jamaica, as we celebrate International Reggae Day 2020. And this is, of course, with a focus on Jamaica's first national hero, the Most Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey, and his influence on reggae music. I would not dare to, or it is not easy to speak after Stephen, he being an expert in this particular field. But I want to also, Kwaku, to commend you and your team for really putting this together to make sure that this celebration happens, because we are working in such difficult times. You know, for us to have meetings and seminars and so on, it has to be through this very creative virtual means. So I really thank you for making this happen. Now, reggae is more than music, really. For millions of people, it really gives voice to their aspirations, to their concerns for freedom, concerns for equality and justice. And so, you know, to say that reggae is music is to really underestimate or understate what it's all about. And like a superpower, reggae is, you know, reggae music has transcended the borders of nations across the globe, winning the hearts of peoples of every ilk across the globe with its powerful message and it's a very compelling beat. No one can escape reggae music. I mean, if you are walking, you walk to reggae. If you're running, you run to reggae. Everything you do, it's just in your blood. That's why it's called the heartbeat. You know, well, we say of Jamaica, but of course, it's really a music that you know, very much imitates the heartbeat, and therefore it means it belongs to everybody. And there's not a single country on this globe where reggae music is not known or loved. But reggae is a music with a mission. And many of the lyrics in reggae music were really inspired by the philosophy and the teachings of Marcus Garvey, especially in relation to Pan-Africanism, to resistance, to, you know, the whole colonial movement, you know, human rights, and, you know, people seeking after justice. I mean, it was very interesting that, you know, when the Tiananmen Square uprising took place, the people were playing reggae music. And when the Berlin Wall was to come down, they were playing Three Little Birds. And you go there to, right now in Germany, and look at where the Berlin Wall was. They still have a piece of the wall left. And there's a lot of graffiti there on reggae music. So it does show you the international nature of reggae music. And that's a point I want to make, and I'm sure, you know, I don't want to be too long. But many see Marcus Garvey as strictly a champion for the Black people. That is true. But the people in Germany are not Black, and the people in China are not Black. But they found that they could be rescued from the oppression under which they were through reggae music with the message of Marcus Garvey, you know, intertwined with it. And so Garvey's work and Garvey's presence and Garvey's influence upon reggae music must be understood in that sense. If we were to ask people to get, you know, copies of Marcus Garvey's writings and to study his philosophy and so on, very few people across the globe would have any interest. From the moment they see his photograph, his picture on the front, they would probably throw the book aside. But it would have been the sort of, you know, the event would have developed in this way, that reggae music would have come to be combined with Garvey's message in order to get the message out there. And that is why reggae is not just music, it's mission. Reggae is not just music, it is really a superpower that transcends borders and goes in and converts the hearts, the minds, the souls of people into with messages that can help them to liberate themselves and to be delivered from the oppression under which they are. Garvey's Pan-African influence on reggae music resulted from the considerable impact his ideas had on Rastafari, the Rastafarian movement. And I think we have underestimated the value of Rastafarian, you know, the Rastafarian movement. Across the world, a small number of people in Jamaica, across the world today, you see people wearing the colors, they are changing their whole, you know, appearance with locks and things of that nature. How is it that reggae music made all of this impact? How did it reach into Japan and into all these countries, France, and all over the world? True. It is because of the message. It's because of what it has to offer. And true. I therefore would like to say that Garvey's impact was very far-reaching, and by, you know, through Garvey's you know, work, it is not just a matter of his mission back in the 40s, 50s, you know, the 30s, thereabouts, when he really was doing a lot of work. But, you know, Martin Luther King, he and his wife, Coretta King, visited Jamaica in 1965, and he laid a wreath, Martin Luther King laid a wreath there and gave a speech. And in that speech, he said that Garvey was the first man of color to lead and develop a mass movement. He was the first man on a mass scale and level to give millions of Negroes a sense of dignity and destiny, and to make the Negro people feel he was that they were somebody. So this is a major thing that that Garvey has done through not only his own messages, but through the inspiration that he has given to Rastafarianism and the way in which Rastafarianism through reggae music, because we have to credit Rastafari for taking reggae music across the globe, for originating it and taking it across the globe. So, you know, I know it's just a few minutes that I have to speak, and that you have a lot to say, but we have to today, as we celebrate International Reggae Day, not only to think of the music, not only to think of the artists, but to think of the source of the message. Emancipate yourself from mental slavery. And not only the message of Garvey, but the message of Haile Selassie, which you know, he speaks in another song, one of Bob Marley's music, you know, about war, you know, until the color of a man's eye is no much more important than the color of his skin, or you know, these kind of messages which have done well. Men like Burning Spear, you know, all the various artists, they have done an extraordinary job. Bob Marley, he himself, you know, presented Garvey's message and music in such beautiful songs that many people across the world are singing and preaching and embracing Garvey's philosophy, not knowing that it is a philosophy of a leader who everyone can say that this was a leader who brought about eventually the civil rights movement that you know, is in America and across the globe, right here in Britain. All these movements, it was inspired by the work of Garvey, and it was sort of got its spread globally through reggae music. And so we have to celebrate International Reggae Day today, but we also must hail Marcus Garvey for the great work he has done, and to hail the Rastafarian movement for embracing the message of Marcus Garvey and presenting it as it has to the world. Thank you very much.
Mikey Campbell.
Thank you so very much. Let's have a round of applause there for the Honorable Seth George Ramocan, of course, the High Commissioner here for Jamaica here in the UK. Honors and respect each and every time, sir. And we thank you for your blessed words tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you indeed. Thank you indeed. I have to plug myself and say that I have done a Marcus Garvey UNIA presentation at Jamaican High Commission, and that was in 2014, marking the 100th anniversary of the founding, as Steve probably said, of the UNIA-ACL. We tend to leave that other bit of the name, ACL, which is the African Communities League. That was founded in 1914. So I was happy to do one in the Jamaican High Commission. And I did the Lavish Rock as well. But I'm glad to see that Michael says he's in the room. So Allison, can you see if you can find Michael Campbell?
Michael Campbell, yes, of course. He's right here. Greetings,
Yeah, right
Michael.
here.
Blessings and honor going out to you each and every time, Michael. Thank you.
Yeah.
Right, so the floor is yours.
Well, Stephen, brilliant. Brilliant. You see,
Thanks, Mikey.
the music is a God-given thing. Garvey did say, it's not now while I am here in the physical, you know. Him say, when I become spirit. Him say that. When I become spirit, I shall be like a thunderbolt. And that has come forward. There's not much more to say because it is so powerful. You know, it is so powerful. The music come out of the need for an outlet to the spirit of Jamaica, right? It was the only medium that we had. We never have no newspaper, we never have no television. Anything happening in Jamaica, you hear it through the music. You know, and it will always be that way. And because it comes from the heart, people pick up on it, anybody who hear it. It amazes me sometimes to go somewhere and hear people who cannot speak English sing these songs and understand what every word means without someone interpreting it for them. It's a magical thing. It's a magical thing. You know, I don't want to take up too much time, but it's a magical thing. And we are magicians. That little island. You know, so you have to just give thanks and praise and continue along the line. And you know what interests me now? You see the little youth them will come, Chronics them, and all of them people there, the whole world going to feel it now. Trust me. Things are happening.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Very much, Mikey Campbell.
I wonder if I could put a question to Stephen, Mikey, and the Right Honourable Mr. Ramocan. I will, with a proviso that you shoot a question and don't preface it with a statement, a long statement, please.
Well, the question is whether or not Jamaica would be prepared to approach the American government and also the Jamaican government, so to have the charges that put Marcus in prison in both countries, whether or not they could put a campaign together to have those charges announced as null and void, because he really was not guilty. And I'm not asking that he be pardoned, because that would suggest that he was guilty. I'm suggesting that because the charges were not true, that they be declared null and void. And also in Jamaica, is Garvey now being taught in our schools and universities?
Let me take that one. Yeah. Let me take that one, Kwaku. Excellent questions there. Hugh, is it?
Yes.
Yeah, we just the National Council Plan which I see it.
Steve, you're breaking up. Can I suggest that maybe you go off video? Stephen, can I suggest you go off the video, because maybe you got a broadband issue, because we didn't hear a word you said. That might help. So if someone wants to take it, and then you can come back, because you're making a point, but you broke up. So if you can hear me, go onto video, put off your video. That might help with your broadband issue. Mikey or His Excellency, do you want to respond?
Well, I can't say for the government, but that's right. That would be the right thing to do.
Kwaku, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
Sorry about that. The internet here sometime up and down. But I was saying, Hugh, that the National Council on Reparation, along with the Ministry of Culture, submitted a document to Parliament to expunge the criminal records, not just of Marcus Garvey, but the other national heroes that had criminal records here. And that also included Chief Tachi, who is not a national hero, but had a criminal record and was executed for a quote-unquote slave uprising. I hate that word, but you know, a rebellion, a revolution. And that was passed finally by Parliament.
Right, once again, I think we're having a very bad communication there, Steve.
In 2017. Both houses voted in favor. Not hearing me? Not hearing me?
Yeah, you're breaking, but you continue.
So it was done here as regards the United States. There were several efforts. The last large one led by Marcus Garvey's son, and we petitioned Barack Obama. Are you still hearing me?
Yes, we can hear.
Okay, but you see the issue with the United States is that Marcus Garvey already received a a presidential pardon in the form of a commutation of sentence
Right, I believe we
in
have.
1927, 5 years. The U.S. presidents can only pardon you. And the issue was that a pardon means you're accepting guilt.
Yes.
So what we wanted in the United States was an exoneration of Marcus Garvey. And there's been attempts at this from as early as 1980, put into the US Congress by Charlie Rangel before he retired, former congressman for Harlem. And it kept getting tabled. It's still on the table in the US Congress. We thought we found a precedent with Bill Clinton issuing a pardon to the first black graduate of West Point. I forget his name, where he was set up to look like he was robbing the commissary, and he was dishonorably discharged from the US Army. Later, they found out it was completely false. It was a racial bias and setup, and President Clinton pardoned him. But the way the pardon was worded was to speak to his innocence. So we thought we found a precedence with that, and that's what we were seeking with Barack Obama. But I have to say, honestly, he disappointed us. He disappointed us. His office said they would rather focus on pardoning people who are alive. But to tell you the truth, there have been offers from within the Trump administration to review this pardon. But it's a touch and go right now because we're not sure how to treat with that, and do we really want Marcus Garvey to be pardoned by a Donald Trump, and how that's going to work, you know? The reason the United States doesn't want to exonerate him is because there would be a major civil case by the UNIA following that. You know, it's the same reason why the European nations are so resistant to the concept of reparations. You know, they just don't want to pay it, so they don't admit guilt.
Hi, do you know how to play your music when it's your
Yes, keep going, please, Stephen. I'm muting him there.
Okay, did everybody hear what I said?
Yes, we catch that. You did get that.
Yeah, so it may happen with Trump, we don't know, but certainly Jamaica has cleaned up that record because it looked bad for us to be asking others to do something when he had a criminal record here. So that certainly was done in 2017. It was called an act to exonerate national heroes, and it included Marcus Garvey and others.
Okay.
Excellent.
Thank you, Stephen. Well done. What about the schools? Is Marcus being taught in Jamaican schools?
There's some schools doing it. We haven't rolled it out on the national curriculum. There was an attempt a couple of years ago, but as I have been saying, and I don't want to toot my own horn here, but I've been saying, you can't ask teachers to teach something they've never been taught themselves.
Okay.
So while the government has used it as a political football, everybody said, yes, we must teach Marcus Garvey in the schools. Who's going to teach it? The teachers weren't taught it, so how are they going to teach it? So what the UNIA here has been doing, and we've been successful in getting clubs formed at the Teacher College Institution, and I believe we've gotten one institution, which is the MICO, which is the oldest teaching institution in the Western Hemisphere. They now have a Garvey course, but we would like to expand that to an entire department. In fact, what we would like to see at the Teachers Colleges is the establishment of a Pan-African Center of Thought, because they need to learn Pan-Africanism so that they can teach Pan-Africanism to the children from a very early age, and that is how we are going to affect the reparations we're seeking from within our own selves.
Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you so much, Stephen. Thank you so much. We just have to say thank you there once again to Mikey Campbell, of course, record producer, engineer, and manager. of course, the Honorable Seth George Ramocan, and once again, Stephen Golding, they're expanding on the Marcus Garvey anniversary right about now, which is so very important. Let's have a round of applause for those three speakers, please, ladies and gentlemen.
Just hang in there,
Thank you,
please.
sis.
Right. Can I just say, the question that you asked, since we've got H in the room, I think it will be useful. Is H gone? Maybe I'm not seeing him. If he is, then it will be nice for him to answer. I suspect he isn't here with us then. Am I right?
Could you wave at me if you are here, or give me a
Because
signal?
you never know who's in the room. If it's not here, then that's a shame, because I think that's an opportunity for him to respond, if not for the government, just to give a sense. But in any case, thank you all. As Allison said, that we should give a hand clap. So one more hand clap to Mikey Campbell.
Yes.
Stephen Golding.
Yes.
And to H.E. Seth George Ramocan. Can I just explain, because I didn't give, one moment, I didn't give Mikey enough of an introduction. Mikey Campbell was one of the guys that discovered Aswad with his made King Sounds. They were the label owners for when they started. And also, he's a great engineer. He's done a lot of stuff on films, on music, a producer. Check out some of the stuff that Aswad have done. Mike has been behind it. He's worked with Daryl Washington and so forth. And right now, he's part of something called the Gregory Isaacs Foundation UK. So they're trying to keep the memory of Gregory Isaacs alive. So that is what Mikey is doing right now. So thank you, guys. Now, Allison, we're going to move into the tricky part of the evening. How to get people to go behind and to play music. I'm not quite sure if we're all comfortable with it.
Just before we do that, sorry.
Yes.
I believe Stephen wants to say one very quick thing. Stephen.
Okay.
Thank you, Allison. I just want to thank you all again for having me. And I certainly appreciate the turnout and the support. And I would also like to ask you all, on August 1st every year, there is a reparations march that takes place in Brixton. This year, I know they plan to lock down Windrush Square.
That's right.
And I want to encourage you all to support that. I know Black Lives Matter is getting a lot of support in talking about Black Lives Matter and talking about the issue of reparation. And that marriage needs to happen, because I know a few years ago people thought that, oh, you know, that's never going to happen. But times
change. Very, very true. And you know, not only that one.
Changing. We saw what the UN human rights chief said the other day, University of Glasgow. United, we need to hammer this through, and we need to finish the fight our ancestors started. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I want to come in before Stephen goes.
Yes.
The reason why we chose its title, The Influence of Marcus Garvey on Reggae, and I think you may have touched it as an aside, this year marks the 80th anniversary of the death of Marcus Garvey in London. It also, more significantly, and a lot of people just are not aware, it marks the 100th anniversary of the first UNIA convention in New York, because that brought about the foundation of the UNIA as an organization. 2 or 3 important things came out of it. The anthem, which a lot of people don't know, the Ethiopian song which they took as their anthem, the red, black, and green color of the UNI, which is the Pan-African flag. And I said there are 2 Pan-African flags, the UNI's flag or colors, and also the Ethiopian or the Rastafari colors. And behind me, what we've done is that we've got the global African quad flag. We've merged the 4 common colors. So you got red, black, yellow, and there's green underneath it. And also, what can I say? If you look at there was something called the Declaration, and there are a whole lot of tenets under that Declaration.
Bye, guys. I will see you later.
2, can you please mute yourself if you do the private call? 2 important things I want to mention out of that tenet is said that Negro children should be taught, well, they would have said Negro history, but right now in 2020, we say African children should be taught African history. It also said that the Africans should choose August 31st as a holiday. So when we marked the 100th anniversary of the UNIA at the Ghana High Commissioner in London, what we did was that we declared 31st August as African History Reflection Day. Holiday can be anything that you take outside your normal routine. So it doesn't mean not necessarily going to work or going to Barbados or going to Paris. It's just taking some time out of your normal routine. So we're saying you can mark African History Reflection Day by taking 15 minutes out of your usual routine and say, let's study some African history. So that is what we did. So Stephen, we'll keep in touch. But last thing, Stephen, why don't you guys add the ACL? Because it seems like you just go by the UNI. Am I correct? Have we lost Stephen?
No, he's there.
Yeah, go on.
No. You have to understand, legally the UNIA and the ACL are two separate legal entities, even though we are a joint organization. The UNIA is a social fraternity. We're a non-profit organization. The ACL was always our business conglomerate. So it was under the ACL that we launched the Black Star line, that we launched Universal Restaurants. And so here in Jamaica, the ACL is still registered. It operates the UNIA's Restaurant Cafe Africa, and it purchases our buildings and so forth like that. But in terms of the brand, you know, UNIA ACL is a little long, so people tend to just tag on to the UNIA. And in terms of our work in the schools, because they fall under the fraternity, and they're not necessarily paying dividends into the ACL. It's limited to just UNIA. But we do have an ACL here going on, and those members who have businesses register their business with the ACL so that we can leverage collective buying and other things.
Thanks a lot for that explanation. Absolutely. Even Marcus Garvey's days, they used to use it interchangeably. One time it's UNIA, one time it's UNIA ACL. So I completely understand that. I'm mindful that we've
gone... No, Garvey used the full title.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, he used the full title. Kwaku, I want to make a point though before I run, and I do have to run. I know you said nowadays we say African, but also Garvey spoke extensively about the necessity for the legal term of the race. Because even nowadays, we have those who carry an African passport but are not of the Negro race. You know, the entire North Africa, a lot of it is taken up by people who legally can say they're African, but racially are not. So Garvey was very visionary in terms of saying that when we refer to the Negro, we know exactly who we're talking about in a racial context. And I know our own son of one of our own presidents, Malcolm Little, who became Malcolm X, sort of revolutionized that term. But I don't want us to lose the legal essence behind which Marcus Garvey put that out there. And especially as we talk about reparations going forward, let us make sure that those reparations come to who they are due and are not spread out as some exercise where we end up paying our enslavers once again, because we did that already. Britain did it, France did it, the US did it. All right.
Okay, I hear you, but hold on. It's gonna be rowdy. I hear you, but I'd like to respond, Stephen. There was a famous East African Kenyan, I believe, historian, and he said they are Africans of the soul and Africans of the blood. So there's a difference between a North African Arab person, let's say Morocco. He's African of the soul, but he's not African of the blood. So I think that distinction is very much appreciated. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I think, Allison, we are, Steve, thank you very much. We are about to wrap this session, and then the DJs will see about the technology. So do you want to formally close this section, Allison?
Yes, thank you so much, Kwaku. I just would like to close this session once again. We've given reverence and respect going out to each and every one of our esteemed speakers here tonight. And just following on Stephen's point, thank you, Paulette Taja, for prompting us on that one. Of course, the African Emancipation Day, reparations, rebellion groundings, uniting to stop the Mangamizi for our very survival, is happening on the 1st of August from 12 o'clock noon in Brixton at the Windrush Square. So please join us. Remember, we have said it is not a march. It is not a march. It's for repairs, rebellion groundings, and reparations. So please do come along and support. And then also on the 3rd of August, we will be having a march to the BBC to demand our own mainstream station, or at least to open the dialogue for that. Thank you so very much. Thank you. Do remember, of course, each and every one, we do have this chat box here. There's so many messages coming up in it. I would have liked to have touched on some of them from Home Heart and other people, but please be mindful of this chat box here. It's here for us to network and to communicate just as we would if we were at the International Reggae Day. I've got to say a blessed up going out to True Identity Trio. Also, Leroy Wilson of Arima is here, as is our blessed Queen Lorna G. Satara. Greetings and welcome. Colin,
Right.
DB.
Thank you. Can I suggest that the way things are going, Colin?
Yeah,
yes.
1 minute. We've still got the, you know, Maxi Priest has had to leave.
Yeah.
Right.
He's gone on to another interview. His publicist, Alex, is here to receive just
Right.
Alex,
could you wave at me
So have you sorted out what you need to do, Colin?
She's going to make a speech on behalf of Maxi.
Right. So Alex, could you?
Right. So you don't have the video or anything. Okay.
No.
Okay.
He actually got into the event, but
yeah, you should have prompted Allison, but not to worry. We're all learning.
Well, no,
At
you were in the
least he had some of the what happened, so that's fine.
Sure. Alex, could you please give me a signal? Alex.
Okay.
A signal, please.
Right. Whilst is it Alice? It's
Alex.
coming.
I'm looking for Alex.
Alex, Maxi Priest, publicist.
He needs 2 minutes.
Okay. Then I'll take that 2 minutes to just reflect, because on the first session, which Colin and Kennedy did, there was something about music collection agencies. I'm not quite sure when we touch on it. So let me just tell you what happened yesterday. Yesterday, being June 30th, I spent the whole day in Zoom meetings with either CEOs or senior executives of the music industry, and I'll tell you who they were. Because on June 2nd this year, there was a call out called Blackout Tuesday. And that was a consequence of the death of George Floyd. Amazingly, and to me, shockingly, but in a positive way, mainstream industry, that's the music industry and the entertainment industry, decided to show solidarity with an African experience, i.e. George Floyd facing what I call Afrophobia, that's racism against an African, said, look, enough is enough. They want to change their systems. Some of them are even putting money behind either sort of training their African or African-American executives to move up the ladder. They're putting money into social programs within the African communities. Here, although they call Black Lives Matter, in the UK, I think blacks get confused, as Stephen was saying. So we go for AIM, African, Asian, Minority, Ethnic, and we talk about African, not black. So I said, it's 30 days since all of you say, yeah, Black Lives Matter. You saying, yes, we have to change the system, there's racism. So I spoke to them to find out where they are at. Next week, I will publish the report of the general conversations. But as part of the music industry, just giving you some knowledge, one of the organizations I spoke to was MMF. That's called Music Managers Forum. So if you're a manager, you need to join them. And they're making a scheme easy for people who are not making too much money for management, but need to be such an organization. So do look out for Music Managers Forum and check them out. There's an organization called BPI. BPI stands for British Phonographic Institute. Oh, sorry, Industry. British Phonographic Industry. And what they do is that it's a membership organization for record companies and entities that own recordings. Again, they're looking to have a scheme that allows smaller, they do have a number of smaller organizations, but they're even looking to have a scheme where smaller record companies can join, because they are a wealth of information. Joining them is a wealth of information. But if you want to be indie, there is AIM, Association of Independent Music. So that's where all the independent companies, big and small, are. So again, what they're doing is that they do give free tickets, they told me, of their events to community programs. So people who can pay but need to sort of network and build their labels can engage with them. And they do help people to network. So AIM, Association of Independent Music. And then there's MPA. So MPA stands for Music Publishers Association. Again, if you're a publisher, and I think Kennedy spoke to it, you need to be a member. Sometimes we think you have to be big to join these organizations. No. One of the ways of being big is to get information. And you're not going to get information online all the time. There's what you call market data. Some of these data is not available easily. You have to be members of these organizations. Who else do I need to name check? PPL, Phonographic Performance Limited. If you own a recording, so you don't have to be a record company, but if you own a recording that is played, whether on TV or radio, you have to be a member of PPL. And also, if you're a musician and you've played on records that are played on radio, you have to be part of PPL, because you don't get paid if you're not on anybody's data. So PPL is a collection society. Not all of them are collection societies, so I identify them. PPL collects money for the public performance of recordings. So do make sure that if you've got recordings or you've played on a record that's played on radio, you join them. I'm just rattling my brain to find out who else, because it's important. I did say that I will let people know about these organizations if they need to join. So I'm quickly, the Ivors Academy. If you're a songwriter or composer, one of the organizations you can join is the Ivors Academy. Some people may know them as BASCA, but they've since changed their name to the Ivors Academy. So they do the Ivors, which is the Oscars for songwriters. Not all musicians are songwriters, so do understand that we've got different skills and different organizations to join. So BASCA is something.
Could we just interject very quickly here, because as you know, time is moving. Could
Yes.
you please put these links in the chat so that we can all access them if you put them all into the chat?
Okay, let me just finish it too quickly. The MU is an obvious one. The MU is actually a union. So if you're a member of a musician, you can join the MU. And this is what I need to say, because a lot of people don't rejoin because they think when they rejoin, they got to pay their back dues. I'm told that that doesn't happen. What you may have to pay is maybe a yearly dues rather than monthly. And the last one is help musicians. In these COVID times, help musicians got about £18 million to distribute amongst musicians. I think there was about £50 or whatever to tie them over before the government grant came in there. So in a quick nutshell, I have mentioned the musicians or the industry organizations I spoke to yesterday on behalf of our community, and what they're doing about diversity, and not just diversity, race, to do with race, racism, and ethnicity. So I think, Allison, I have finished for now. So
Thank you so much.
Are we ready?
Kwaku. Sorry to have to rush you, but we do have Alex here, who we believe is the representative PA of Maxi Priest. Alex, I'm going to spotlight you now. Hi, Alex. Thank you so
Hello,
much.
everybody.
Thank you so much for taking the time out to join us here, you know, and it's honorable that Maxi Priest has won the best album for 2020. So I will pass you over to the RF UK representative here, which is our very own CB. But thank you so much for joining us, and pass on congratulations to Maxi. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. He's very excited for winning the album of the year. And I have a statement from him, so I'm going to just read it real fast for you guys. Greetings and blessings to each and every one. This is from Maxi Priest. First, I want to say that I'm so sorry, but the internet where I am in Treasure Beach, Jamaica is giving me problems. But he was listening, and what he heard was excellent. I'm so proud of my people, but we do need to support the industry of reggae music. The only way to do this is financially by supporting your favorite artist. It doesn't matter who they may be. The only way this music will survive is by support of our income in the reggae industry. The support of the income from the reggae industry comes from outside support, but then we have a habit of chasing them away. This has always been a problem to me, and I failed to understand that, as that was not the road that was set. But I pray that we can overcome. An extra special thank you to the International Reggae Day UK organizers for the People's Choice UK Reggae Music Poll Favorite Album of 2019. I humbly accept this award on behalf of you, the people. A massive thank you to everyone who voted. Big up to the Reggae Fraternity UK, Black British Music, along with your teams for your hard work on this amazing event. Blessings all around.
Wow.